Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's 1 month to the day since Burundi's president announced that he was running for a third term. The opposition claims that's illegal. There's been a month-long crisis in the country punctuated by a failed coup, and now this past weekend, the assassination of a opposition leader who was running for president. With us to talk about it from Bujumbura, William Nyamitwe, senior advisor to President Nkurunziza. Welcome back. We want to welcome back as well David Gakunzi, president of the Paris Global Forum. She's a municipal councillor here in the Paris suburb of Burundi, not one town away from, just across the river here, and the niece of one of the last kings of Burundi, Princess Esther Kamatari. Thank you for being back with us, and thanks as well to retired UN General Dominique Trinquant. Now, Saturday, before the assassination of Feruzi in Panda, outside of the capital, the president addressed rapturous crowds, with faithful there describing him as the savior. The president stating, as we heard in part one of our discussion, that 99% of the country is protest-free.
My message to the demonstrators is that they have their rights, but they must respect other people's rights too. They must respect the rights of everyone.
Esther Kamatari, your reaction?
My reaction, it's when just listen what Monsieur Nyamitwe said. He tried to inverse the role. When you see what happened in Bujumbura, it's the police outside. The police have a gun, and the population have nothing. So my re-election is we have a constitution. We don't accept to be wrapped this constitution. To wrap the constitution, it's to wrap the whole Burundi's people, which means 11 million of the people. Whatever who wrote the constitution, he said, even it's very difficult, or anyone can interpret that. He said 2 terms. The President Nkurunziza was the president for 10 years. Today, I think, if we talk about democracy, we fight for democracy. People die for this democracy. The new generation now want to be free. We want to develop themselves. So we want alternance. Today, it's not possible to have people die every day, one here, one there. When you see how many women, how many people, our generation, new generation outside refugees, it's not unacceptable. So if Mr. Nkurunziza loves this country, which I really don't think so, he has to say to renounce in this term, the third term.
William Nyamitwe, at this point in time, can a compromise include the president not running for a third term?
No. I don't think so. As I said, we are in a democratic process, a democratic system. That means if people don't want Pierre Nkurunziza, they can go to elections and vote him out. This is the only way to get him out, not to take a violent way. And I was saying, she says I'm inversing the roles. I do believe that some policemen have violated the law, have done some violent acts against protesters. And so far, we've got more than 5 policemen that have been arrested and that are going to face trial. But on the other side, we have protesters that are very violent and that are killing people. We've seen even someone who has been killed and burnt alive in Nyakabiga. So how can people continue to sustain those persons who are doing such bad things? Everybody is going to be taken accountable about all the bad things that are happening here. So we were saying, if people don't want Pierre Nkurunziza, they only have to go and vote him out. There's no other way, because the ruling party members, they have their right to appoint who they want to be their candidates at the presidential election of 2015. But those from opposition parties, if they don't want him, it's their right. But they have to protest peacefully and according to our laws.
But there is a climate of fear right now with more than 110,000 who fled the country.
Yes, but this is not the first time to get people outside the country before elections. But why people are fleeing the country? They run away because of rumors. Go and meet them. No one has been injured. No one can tell you that he has lost any of his siblings or brother or sister. No one, because they are running away because of rumors. Some rumors have been broadcasted through some medias and some social media here in Burundi. People are fleeing because of these rumors. So we need everybody back. And even today, the president was in the south to meet some Burundians who are coming back. We have more than 10,000 Burundians who have already come back home, and they found all their belongings intact. So what we can say also is that in 2010, people have fled their country and came back after the elections. Even in 2005, it was the same. But more than 500,000 Burundians were outside the country because of war. So we do believe that all those persons are going to come back before the elections, and the others are going to come back after the elections. But we need people to continue in this democratic process. This is the only way we have to replace institutions elected democratically by the others that are going to be elected by the population.
David Gakunze.
Please, let's come back to the facts and to reality. The facts, what the facts tell us. Who killed the people in Bumerek Hospital? Who destroyed the media, the independent media? You know, the facts are there. The violence comes from the state. And the man who produced all this environment of violence is the man who say, I want to stay in power again and again. That's the reality. So there are there's one choice. Either we go in a good end, which means through dialogue, the president come back to reality and he accepts that for the purpose of peace in Burundi, for the purpose of respecting Arusha agreement and the people who worked on the Arusha agreement, he step out. Either all these things will finish very, very badly, as history has shown already us.
Dominique Trinquant, your experience working in this part of the world, do you feel as though we're going backwards right now, to put it bluntly?
No, we are clearly in a situation where there is a blockade. I mean, people can't understand each other, they can't discuss together. So that's why I'm coming back always to the fact that people must go back to a table and talk together. On one side, people don't want this president to be elected the next time. So they don't want to go to the election because they know that he will be elected. On the other side, the ruling party has decided his own way to present this president. So the problem is that currently, for the election, the opposition is not in a position to win the election. So the problem is a problem of person and not really a problem of who will win the election. And so that's why I'm talking about going back to the table and trying to sort out the problem, because there is no other issue. Either there will be a dictatorship established, or either there will be, a lot of trouble in the streets in Bujumbura, which is currently the case, but at a lower level. You must look at that. It's not, it's not 100 people killed by the police, mainly the police, because the police is mainly on the side of the president, and the army was not completely on the side. So you look at nobody is killing the other. So we are still at a low level of disturbance. So it's still time to discuss.
Esther, your reaction to that?
I don't think it's possible to organize election this way and on the blood. We cannot. The election can be not organized when you have hundreds, thousand people outside. You cannot organize election in 10 days. We cannot organize the election when people is afraid what will happen. We cannot build democracy on the blood. Today, it's necessary to listen to people. It's not only government, only whatever. It's us, it's the population. I'm so sorry to see. I was there 20 years ago when the war started in Burundi. I was the first one to arrive in Burundi, helping the people in Burundi. I always dream to never go back in that again. So if these people, if the president, whatever, the group, love the Burundi, he have to go away and leave someone else start.
Right.
It's not possible to see the police with gun on the street to kill people.
All right, Dominique Trinquant mentioning that so far it's a low level of violence compared to what we've witnessed in the past. And so far, it's a political standoff. Fortunately, it's not an ethnic one. This is a nation we're talking about that has the same ethnic makeup as neighboring Rwanda, and where there's been 6 ethnic massacres in the past at least. On the campaign trail, though, this weekend, the president of the ruling party, Pascal Nyabanda, urging restraint from the youth wing of the party, but he's starting to paint the standoff in those ethnic terms. Take a listen.
We would like to see that one ethnic group does not equal one opinion. We often see that inside the country. Demonstrations occur where there is only one ethnic group. It is dangerous for Burundi, as the country was in the process of building a nation of peaceful coexistence between all ethnicities.
Now, David Gakunzi, he doesn't name the ethnic group in question, but it's obvious to many that he means the Tutsis.
Yeah, the risk is that when you get this kind of violence, it gets out of control at a certain point, and it can turn ethnic. You never know. I saw Rwanda in 1993, and I have the feeling that today Burundi is where Rwanda was in 1993, the few months before the genocide. What happened in Rwanda in 1993? There were killings of opponents, Hutu opponents. There were these terror feelings, and there were these clans who were in power, who want to stay in power at any cost, including by producing ethnicity in the society. So we are in a very dangerous situation, and I think we are, the people who are in power today, they still have a last chance to try to not stay in the history of Burundi of like people who have burned this country.
Yeah, I think there is a factor that we don't take into account, which is a new factor and which is all over Africa. It's the youth of the population. 60% of the population is less than 24 years old. And in every country in Africa, people who have this age have no job for most of them. They don't want to be in a country where nothing is moving. They want to move. And so the perception they've got currently in this country, but they had also in Burkina Faso, and they are in Congo, and they are probably in other countries, in Gabon and elsewhere, is that they want things to move. It's probably a wrong perception, but that's their perception, and they are the majority of the country. So this is something that should be taken into account. And that's why, as my neighbor said, there is a last chance to discuss and to take into account this change in the psychology of the people and the youth of in the country.
Willy Nyamitwe, the risk of a spiral and a dangerous one, how do you rate it? And do you disown those remarks made by the presidents of the ruling party saying that in areas inside the country we often see there's only one ethnic group making trouble?
Okay, what I have to emphasize is that those persons who called for demonstrations, they have been trying to bring in a very bad and dangerous narrative about ethnicity. For example, where these are happening, it's in Nyakabiga, Musaga, Mutakura, where we can find maybe the majority of people living there are Tutsis. But what I can say is that those persons are belonging to a political party called MSD. I cannot call it an ethnic situation, but this can lead us to this situation. For example, the other narrative that has been brought in was the comparison between Imbonerakure to Interahamwe. Interahamwe were Hutu militias in Rwanda in 1994. This is what Mr. David Gakunze is saying. And so far, the person that have been called Interahamwe are two persons. One of them was a French citizen, another one a Ugandan citizen. And people found that all these were only rumors and people trying to manipulate the opinion in order to push Tutsi people to kill Hutu people and Hutu people to revenge. But we resisted, and we are trying to do our utmost in order to not fall in this ethnic crisis. But what those people are doing...
Esther, commentary on that.
Yes, I just want to answer to Mr. Nyamitwe, and I start by a proverb, Kirundi proverb. Ngosakwanga akuraga ivdamunani, which means something like a parents who don't love you give you testimony.
Yeah, it's heritage.
A heritage, something he never can solve. So, to take us in this problem with ethnic, absolutely not true. Today is not ethnic problem, it's politic problem. Today is not possible when he said this Ngagara or whatever Musaga, which is not true. Is absolutely not true. And when we're talking about freedom, don't forget the radio, everything was blow up. It's not just to close media.
When there was the attempted coup, there were attacks against independent media and opposition radio and television stations. David Gakunzi.
Exactly. With violence, a lot of violence. And today there are journalists who live under the fear of being killed. You know, this is the situation. The real situation is terror, an organized terror in the country. And I think that maybe the people who are in power, they are far from the reality. They don't realize with what kind of material they are playing with. We are in a situation where tomorrow they will end up, if they don't change, in international criminal tribunal in La Haye. This is what will happen at the end.
That's exactly part of the negotiation, and UN is used to that. To bring back the radio working in order for everyone to express itself. I just remind you that the radio were destroyed by the police, the private radio, but the national radio was destroyed also by the government, by the coup, by the tentative coup. So everything was destroyed. And now part of the negotiation is to go back and to have the journalists doing their job and talking at the radio. That's part of the negotiation.
Willy Nyamitwe, are journalists in Burundi going to be able to get back to normal life soon?
Why not? We are discussing about this when under the aegis of the UN, AU, ICG, LR, and the COMESA, and to see what can be a quick solution. For example, we think that journalists can gather together in the press house and run something that is in synergy to cover this election process. But also, we need some independent media to open soon because they have been destroyed. But who destroyed the media? The government has asked for an investigation, a quick and...
We seem to have a problem with the... We've lost the sound there. We'll try to get that hookup back with Willy Nyamitwe. The problem, of course, of the media being knocked off there is one. The other problem that we have is a broader one, which is this cycle. On the one hand, General Trinquant was saying how there's a new generation coming up, which is different from the old one. Yet we seem to have this permanent state of tension, not just in Burundi, but also with its neighboring states as well. Absolutely.
But when we're talking about bring back the radio or the free media, which means it's not possible to organize the election in 10 days. Today we are at the end of May. Even we have the new radio today, the new media. It's not possible to organize the elections because the opposition don't have a possibility to go, anyway. We have this constitution. It's a socle of our country.
Foundation.
Absolutely. It's not possible to go over for this. And then the new generation today, we have to read different way. Like you said earlier, 60% of the population is below 20 years old. So he aspires something. We don't think our generation aspires to be a policeman or whatever. He wants to do something else.
Yeah, I think things are very simple. The solution is very simple. First of all, respecting Arusha Agreement, which means no third term. Secondly, transitional government with a mandate of organizing elections in 6 months or 1 year, it depends. And third, demilitarizing the Imbonerakure militias. And fourth, to civil rights, the right to information. It's very simple. And if we go through that way, we can find a solution where everybody will, we can find a solution which accommodates everybody. But if the government persists in its way today, the end will be very sad. And I don't want to see either Nkurunziza or Willy, because they are Burundians like myself, ending up in an international tribunal.
All right, blunt words there. Willy Nyamitwe, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for joining us from Bujumbura. I want to thank David Gakunze, General Dominique Trinquant, Esther Kamarthi. Thank you for being with us. Stay with us, though, because our Media Watch segment is next. All right, and for our Media Watch segment, here, I'll stand up and we'll say hello to Emma James. Emma, the Burundi story, the whole world is watching it now at this point.
Absolutely. There is coverage across the globe. It is by no means slipping by unnoticed by any country really now. If we take a look at the Washington Post, they feature an opinion piece which begins with the tearful photograph of one of the mourners at the funeral of the opposition leader that was held this weekend. But they go on to say that things aren't looking good. They really are the masters of the understatement here. They say that Nkurunziza looks perfectly content to play games with the lives of his citizens in his unconstitutional quest for power. They say that Belgium's threat to suspend aid has had little effect. And what the Washington Post says is, while the US is right to have condemned the coup attempt, what they now have to do is stand up and say that there have to be full sanctions on Burundi and Nkurunziza. Now, the UN Refugee Agency, because that's the other growing side of this crisis, figures are being put at anywhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people having left Burundi. They've tweeted this today, and some of the images really do give you an idea of just how bad the situation is, just how desperate it's all become there, and the kind of numbers involved. I mean, it's just unspeakable horror, really. And of course, the other thing that we now have in Tanzania is a cholera outbreak. So they're now not only battling the numbers, but they're battling disease too. The Wall Street Journal has produced this sort of photo essay where they use a beautiful, beautiful series of images, but they point to the fact that political strife here may turn into ethnic clashes. Of course, it's only a decade since the end of the last civil war. 300,000 Tutsis and Hutus were killed during that. And they say that although the reasons are political right now, we're kind of on a knife edge and it could become something that is ethnic. Opposition figures, they say, are keeping a low profile, but they don't want people to think that Nkurunziza is running unopposed. So they're walking a fine line, really, trying to get themselves seen, get their message heard, but without putting themselves in danger too. Another account, which is really very, very emotional, and it's not a journalist. This is a gentleman who has a blog. He works for a religious group, a charity based in the Great Lakes region, and he gives an account of how it feels for him to be there. He's lived in Burundi since 1998, and he describes openly crying in a cafe because he was just so overwhelmed by what was happening. And he says this isn't the Burundian way. He gives an idea of the sort of the thinking behind Burundian people, and he says a Burundian man's tears fall inside his stomach is a well-known phrase in the country, but as he points out, he just has too much of a need to release something. He talks about a colleague's 3-year-old daughter who literally wets herself every time she hears gunfire. So clearly there is plenty to cry about, and it's an awful situation that people are witnessing. UNICEF have also posted this image, which is a slightly more hopeful one, showing a group of young boys who are saying that football is the only way that they can forget about the violence. However, the reaction to that has been markedly different to what we saw because, of course, this was the scene on Friday, protests on the streets while President Pierre Nkurunziza was playing football.
He's known to enjoy playing football in his downtime. We're going to switch gears. And stories you're looking outside of the African continent. The President of the United States, I think, an unfortunate encounter, you should say, with social media?
Yes. He launched his own Twitter account, @POTUS, which stands for President of the United States, exactly a week ago. And what people are talking about now is that it's really highlighted the level of racism that exists in the United States and across the world, because of course it's not just the US, this is Twitter, it's worldwide. Within 10 minutes of his first tweet, the first hateful message came in, using the N-word, advising him to go get cancer. That account has now been suspended. Now, what he might have expected was more along the lines of this kind of thing, you know, cute messages from people. This is a letter from a 5-year-old where she says, "Please stop war for our world. Instead, have a meeting. Please give a speech to everyone. They can marry who they want. Thank you." He replied, "Couldn't agree more." But this is the kind of shocking image that we have been seeing. Arrest Obama, treason, we need rope for change. Now that, of course, if you remember back in 2008, his campaign poster had the word hope at the bottom. This has the word rope and a noose around his neck. And that Twitter account is still live today.
All right, many thanks for that, Emma James. And considerations over how to use social media, obviously, still running, especially when you see that it can be a platform for hate. Many thanks to our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.